Hello and welcome to our Wellbeing Hub here at the Trafford Centre. I'm so excited that you're all here. This is our final episode in the podcast series. And today we're going to be finding out about what will help us to fuel our inner glow. We all have it, it's right there, but sometimes it needs some enhancing for our overall health and well-being. There's so much external noise around this subject, and I don't know about you, but sometimes I can find it really overwhelming. One minute I think I need to plunge into the ice bath, the next minute I need to be back in my bikini and in the sauna, or possibly even in a hyperbaric chamber. I'm an absolute coffee fiend, but now I feel like I need to swap my usual black Americano for a bulletproof coffee, maybe skip my breakfast and start intermittent fasting. I'm overwhelmed just listing all of these different things that we should or perhaps shouldn't be doing. So with all these sort of trends and hacks, they do claim to have massive health benefits. But what I really want to get to the bottom of today with my guests is what is really worth our time. And I am joined today by two experts who I know are going to be able to answer that question and more. Because today in the podcast studio, there's not one, but two doctors in the house. I'm joined by Dr. Idris, who's also known on TikTok as Dr. Ids. He's a medical doctor with a master's in nutritional research and board certified in lifestyle medicine. And sharing the stage with myself and Dr. Ids is also Dr. Raj. She is a specialist GP and health educator. So it's fair to say we are definitely in good hands for today's episode. I was really excited when I found out that you two were going to be my guests today. And I think selfishly it's because this is an area that I'm really interested in, but possibly have been kind of sort of making my way through it and sort of Googling things and following different experts. And often the advice I seek by the next week is contradicted by another expert. And something that I had started to do was intermittent fasting. And I thought, well, actually, sometimes when I just end up laying in, I intermittent fast even without choice. You know, I'll skip my breakfast and I'll get on the train and I'll rush to work. So some of us have been doing this for years. Does that mean that there are benefits that have been proven? Is there data? And is there different types of intermittent fasting that doesn't just involve missing the train, laying in and not having breakfast? And are there any potential drawbacks? Is there any dangers to skipping meals?
Sure, yeah. So intermittent fasting, I think it was named one of the most popular diet trends or things that people like to engage in as a means of weight loss, right? Now, there are lots of different types of intermittent fasting. You have things like 16-8, where you only have an 8-hour eating window, then you fast for 16 hours. Or there's alternate day fasting, so one day on, one day off. And you have the 5-2. There are lots of different iterations, right? Now, what it boils down to is it's a useful, viable strategy to reduce your overall caloric intake. Because if you have a shorter amount of time to eat in the day, then inevitably most people will eat less, right? Unless you're like me, who can have 3,000 calories in one meal, right? But that's a different situation. Now, all of the controlled research from multiple meta-analyses, which I've cited many times online, show that when you match the total number of calories, whether you intermittent fast, whether it's 16-8, 24, or alternate day, versus continuous energy restriction, so you eat whenever you want in the day, but you simply have smaller meals, it doesn't actually matter which one you do, as long as you stick to whatever plan you're doing. Right? So adherence is the most important thing. So what I'd say is it's a very sensible and viable way to help someone, control their, for example, type 2 diabetes or manage their weight-related outcomes or hypertension, right? But it's not magic. It's not any superior to just restricting your calories or managing your diet across the entire day. Whereas people like to claim that it has some kind of superior benefits. There are certain situations where I think there are some small benefits, but I think for the general population, I would suggest that if you can see yourself sticking to it for the rest of your life, then perfectly viable. If you're claiming it's only a short-term solution, then I wouldn't recommend it, because a lifestyle intervention is only going to be successful if you can see yourself doing that for the rest of your life. Right.
Yeah, I completely echo what Dr. Idz is saying. I think with any diet, as a GP, you see this a lot. People come in, doctor, what should I do? And it's kind of like, whatever it is that you're going to do, compliance is key. So you just got to keep at it. You've got to be consistent. And it's not this versus that. I think it's more about, I want to make a lifestyle change. And that doesn't just translate into your diet. It'll be physical activity. It'll be the mindfulness, the things you do to reduce stress levels. Like Dr. Idz said, I think with intermittent fasting, it almost gives you, it's a bit trendy, doing the 5-2, the 16-8. It almost gives you a reason to be like, okay, I'm going to skip my breakfast and do 8 hours eating, and then I'm going to do alternate day fasting. I'm going to do, whatever you're going to do to kind of show that I am committed to this. So it becomes trendy. You're almost on the bandwagon of lifestyle. And to be fair, as a GP, I say, whatever floats your boat, as long as you're doing it for long periods of time and you're sticking to it. There has been some research, lots needs to be done still, and maybe Dr. Idz, if you know more, you can tell us on maybe the inflammatory effects of an intermittent fasting diet, on things like arthritis, asthma, Alzheimer's. So there's still research to be done in that area, but we think that some of this fasting in these kind of periods of time might be helping to reduce inflammation versus just having a low calorific diet overall and sustaining that. So I think there's some benefit maybe on that side, but overall, if you're looking at it, it is basically having a calorie deficit. If you're somebody who's eating unhealthy meals, ensuring that you're following a more Mediterranean-style diet, you're keeping yourself with lifestyle preventions like physical activity as well, and following all those things. So I wouldn't, jump on a bandwagon of a diet for any reason, but if it's going to help you do it sustainably, then fair enough is what I'd say.
Now, anyone that knows me knows I love my black coffee. I'm a bit of a creature of habit. I start every morning with a black coffee or an Americano if I go to a barista cafe. I've heard lots of things about bulletproof coffees, people making them at home and putting like a little slab of real butter in their coffee. It sounds a little bit trend-led, and there are other sort of trendy beverages. There's matchas and different things like that. What's the truth behind these drinks that can sometimes be quite expensive?
I'm going to ask Dr. Idz to start with bulletproof coffee because he's spoken a lot about it online, so I'm sure he's got a view.
Personally, I think it's silly. It was originally designed as a substitute for breakfast, right? So the reason why people are adding fats, butter, MCT oil, medium chain triglycerides to the coffee is that they're saying that, okay, add a bit more calories to it, make it a bit more filling, right? And then you can go until 2, 3, 4 p.m. until your next meal, right? In what universe is a coffee with some butter a viable breakfast, right? It makes no sense. Not only that, we know that even the diterpenes within coffee itself, plus the saturated fats you get from the butter, both of these things can dramatically raise someone's LDL cholesterol levels, right? And this is typically referred to as bad cholesterol. That's a bit of a, generalization. But what I'd say is it's not wise for people to include multiple things that have independently been shown to raise one of the most important blood lipids we have available. This, has implications for long-term cardiovascular disease, especially if it's something you're doing long-term. So if you're doing this bulletproof coffee trend or fad for multiple years, as opposed to having a balanced, high protein, high fiber, low glycemic load breakfast, which is, much more suitable, I would recommend. I don't know why that is portrayed as a viable substitution. Coffee is perfectly fine. A lot of the research, there's an umbrella review of over 200 meta-analyses in 2017 by Robin Poole and colleagues, some technical science stuff. But basically, people who consume 3 to 4 cups of coffee a day, they have lower rates of cardiovascular disease, metabolic syndrome, liver disease, type 2 diabetes, right? And lots of different types of medical conditions. But we don't have to ruin that just having a morning cup of coffee by adding some butter, by adding some oils to it. Just have your coffee if you want to. It's not a suitable substitution for breakfast. That's what I'd say. Dr. Raj.
Agreed. I think if you look at the research as well, actually, studies do show that bulletproof coffee versus a normal black coffee gives you the same increase or enhancement per se of cognitive performance. So actually, if you're looking at that, why do we have coffee? Wait a minute, I need a coffee every morning. Gosh, when I was pregnant, that was a struggle, decaf, everything. But I think to get up and get on with it for good 2 to 3 hours, you're going to get good kick of energy and a good boost. If you're doing it for that reason, just have coffee, whether it's black coffee, milky coffee, latte, cappuccino, just have it. If you're trying to fill yourself because you think, this is a suitable alternative to having a pastry or, something that's really unhealthy for breakfast, just do the sensible thing and have a more healthier breakfast. So whether you're going to go for, granola, oats, whatever it might be that you're going to have, fruit, healthier fruits, antioxidants, blueberries, eat those. Fill yourself up, have your coffee, and then have lunch. And if you're doing intermittent fasting in which breakfast is not a thing, then breakfast is not a thing anyway. It's just have your black coffee and get on with the day. That's my view on that. So I echo what you're saying. And with supplements, I think that's something we've talked about before, but I think with supplements, it's really easy to give a hard yes or no to somebody, all very much in context. So what else are you doing with your life? Do you have a varied diet? Are you, for example, eliminating things like eggs and fish from your diet, in which case you might have a lower vitamin D, and therefore you might need to take a supplement for that. And I think there's lots of different things that you need to look at before you say no to supplements or yes. Again, I will say they're quite trending. So there's lots of, I take a multivitamin, for skin, for hair, for nails. How much of that is just enthusiasm in terms of what's going to come out as an outcome, and how much of it is actually benefiting your health? I think there's, definitely some disparity there. And also the idea that if you're taking a supplement, you're probably health conscious anyway. So you're probably going to be doing other things in your lifestyle to help you. You're probably a bit more savvy about the menopause. If you're thinking about a whole supplement for menopause, you're a bit more savvy about exercise. You might be going to the gym more regularly. So I think taking things in context and understanding whether a supplement is for you or not is more important than just saying yes to everything or no to everything, because it's not one size fits all. That's what I'd say. And I'm sure, Dr. Idz, you might have something to add to that.
Agree. Yeah, supplements, I think largely most supplements on the market that you find in health shops, online, they're going to be useless for most people. There are a few genuinely beneficial evidence-based supplements. I think the rankings are something like, I would say creatine monohydrate, number 1, caffeine, number 2, 3, maybe whey protein or a soy protein isolate, number 3, 4, there's some arguments for various multivitamins with different compositions, 5, maybe vitamin D. Outside of the really, the really evidence-based, I'm talking hundreds of individual studies on each of these, hundreds, right? Even in the 90s, there was 500 studies on creatine alone. So I'm not talking about, when a company just funds their patented, brand of supplement for one study. I'm talking about what does the literature say about these genuinely evidence-based supplements. Beyond the top 5, 6, I really think, people are much better off focusing on their lifestyle habits rather than looking to a pill for a solution. I know that's hard for some people to hear, because people do like a quick fix. They like a short-term solution. They like something you can just wake up, take in the morning, and now I don't have to eat my beans or my nuts or my fruit or my antioxidants, right? But unfortunately, long-term health outcomes, they do require some effort and some determination. And if we have access to, I know not everyone's in the same boat, not everyone has the same access, financial situation, socio-environmental situation, we have to be mindful of that. But to do what we can with our lifestyle first and foremost will always trump any supplement you can take.
Yeah.
So that's what I'd say. There are some genuinely evidence-based ones, but beyond the top few, I think it's important to look at our own lifestyles first.
Yeah, always diet first, I think. And I think the amount of a potential antioxidant you're going to get from something fresh, a fresh produce, it's just not going to be the same as what you're going to get in a capsule or a tablet.
Yeah.
And that's what I always tell my patients. It's important for you to recognize that if I am saying to you that due to a health condition or due to something that you're doing in your diet, or culturally or whatever it might be, like socioeconomically, you cannot afford X, Y, and Z, then yes, I will be supplementing you. We do the same with children. So if you've got children who may not be able to, not have a diet of X, Y, or Z, we'll give them stuff for them to take when they're younger, whether it's vitamin D or a whole supplement, and that helps them. We have research that shows that this is it. It's all guided by our, nice evidence-based clinical guidelines. So we know that it works for children. It will also work for adults who have a deficit of that kind. However, I think for the normal human being who's going about with a good life, a healthy lifestyle, who just wants to jump on the fad of I'm going to take 20 supplements, you're probably just weeing it all out, to be honest. It's a bit of a waste, you know.
So when we're talking about diet, I suppose we all know that, what we're doing physically, exercise-wise, body and physical health are so linked and so important. But what about a lot of us now, have so much research and technology at our fingertips, and we've almost started to play doctor a little bit. And now we're hearing about things like body analysis testing. Are you familiar with this? Is this something that you think should be encouraged? Oh, that's interesting. Okay, so if we're actually talking about stripping it all back, what about then? I cannot go on Instagram without seeing somebody in their back garden in one of these sort of home inflatable ice baths. And I'm there, usually with my black coffee, scrolling, thinking, oh my goodness, that person got up at 4 a.m., they've plunged themselves into an ice bath, or they've gone to the gym before work and they've used cryotherapy or saunas. Is this something that we should all be looking into? How beneficial is this to our long-term health?
Do you want to start?
Body analysis testing, so I'll go into that. So I think it's a funny one, because I think in some ways it depends what you're doing. But in some ways you could look at body analysis testing, you're looking at the fat, for example, so visceral fat, actual fat versus the non-fat component. You're almost looking at that. You could almost argue that's better than, for example, BMI, when you're looking at the actual health of somebody, an individual. But there are other markers that I think are more helpful, so waist to hip ratios and waist circumferences. Even BMI is so outdated, no one really uses that anymore, it doesn't mean anything. So I think these are all, again, in my eyes as a general practitioner who does look at health, well-being and lifestyle to some extent, that it's not a great indicator of someone's health, because we don't always know exactly. We don't have a standardized system, basically, of how to measure that. So there's so many companies offering these analysis tests. How do we know they're all the same? And actually, I spoke to a magazine recently, and we were talking about exactly this, biohacking and aging. And she went to 3 different places and got a different outcome in each one. And she, we had a chat about it. And she said to me, and it's not standardized, it's not controlled. So I think if it's not in the remit of something we have said is guided by our medical knowledge, our evidence base, and our research enough, like Dr. Id said, with thousands of papers say this is going to work, then I don't think it's necessary. I think still the correct way of analyzing your body is to think about maybe, waist to hip ratio, waist to abdomen circumference, your weight, your health outcomes. So what's your genetics saying? What's your family history saying? What is your diet saying? How much exercise are you getting? These are still the best outcomes. Look at metabolic syndrome, look at cardiovascular health, your chance of, diabetes outside of that, for women in their 40s who now we know are more at risk of things like heart attacks. And again, it doesn't present like in a male. Those inequalities are still there. So, I wouldn't recommend go and have a body analysis test for somebody like that. I would say, come and speak to me. Let's put together your individual risk factors. Let's talk about what you're doing with your life. Do you have stress? Do you have issues that that might be impacting that? Your cortisol going up at certain times? Is your blood pressure spiking, but then it's normal? So all these indicators are important to some level. And I don't feel that a body analysis test is going to just give you that on a piece of paper and say, here you go. Your fat level's really high, you need to go and do X, Y, and Z. That's my personal take on it. I know a lot of doctors will shoot me for that, because some people think body analysis testing is great. And actually, in the clinic that I work in privately, we do have a 4D cardio scan. And, where every time I will say that it can be helpful. Sometimes, I'll get a referral from there and we'll be talking to them about lifestyle. And typically, we'll pick up the person who has got, more body fat, I'd say, that needs to be addressed in proportion to their non-fat ratio, for example. So yes, I think there's space for it, but I don't think it's the gold standard testing. And now I'm not going to look at Dr. Idz, I'm going to let him talk.
I agree with a lot of what she said there. I'd say we're in a society now where we almost have paralysis by analysis, right? And what I mean by that is we have so much data on everything, and so many companies are offering so much data, right? You got sleep rings, you got Fitbits, you got all these different types of
now.
You got stool testing, send in a bit of poo, and you're going to test that now. You test everything on your body, right? You can do whatever you want to do. The funny thing is, the core tenets of what makes up a healthy lifestyle won't change. They won't ever change. Even if you take 2 people, right? One does 100 tests, private tests and random tests, right? The other one doesn't do any tests. the advice is the same. It's the same advice, right? This is what I find really fascinating. It's I know this is much more of a problem in the American market because obviously things are privatized there. Look, we're very fortunate here to be able to get all kinds of tests, from the taxpayers' money. So, what I'd say is we have to be careful not to give ourselves data-induced anxiety, which is just worrying too much about how many hours am I in my deep sleep phase, right?
Agreed.
How many, what's my specific ratios of specific vitamins to minerals to specific enzyme, antioxidant. I've genuinely been sent by people I've worked with privately, entire 50-page PDFs of all of these random types of carbon 14, 12, 10, and I know this because of biochemistry, but this is not helpful, right? Knowing all of these different fatty acids and specific antioxidants and enzymes in our body, and this one's low and this one's high. It's like, what does this mean? This one's low, doctor. What does it mean? I can't even tell you.
Yeah.
So if I can't tell you, what does the average person say about, right? So I think, the main facets, the main tenets, the main core principles of achieving a healthy lifestyle outside of our genetics, because we can't change our genetics, those pieces of advice won't change, right? Get your fruits and veggies in, get your whole grains in, eat a lot of fiber if you can, right? Make sure you're having quite a bit of protein, right? We now know that the recommended daily amounts might even be too low now. Prevent sarcopenia, muscle wasting, right? Make sure you do some kind of resistance training, even if you are not able to walk that much. When you're sitting down, raise your heels, just tense your muscles whenever you can. These things won't change. I'm not a fan of a lot of these private testing companies that promise very extraordinary things. There are some body analysis testing that is legitimate, like Dr. Raj said. Waist circumference, fantastic measurement. The data is abundantly clear. Every inch that gets added onto your waist, there's a 2.5% increased risk of all-cause mortality. That's death from all causes, right? And this is across multiple studies. We know, if you do a bioelectrical impedance analysis from the gym, where you stand on the little rods and it sends a little electrical current through your body, right? It can tell you a rough idea of how much of your body is fat, how much is visceral fat, how much is bone, how much is water, right? So stuff like that can genuinely be helpful. Beyond some of these, as you said rightly, the gold standard measurements and tests that we have, I think a lot of them can be quite anxiety-inducing, can even worsen health outcomes if it gets someone so overly obsessed about fixating on a specific antioxidant or specific enzyme they're low in. I think this is doing more harm than good. So to summarize all of what I just said, we have paralysis by analysis. I think cut back on the amount of data we're actively seeking, focus on the main 2, 3, 4 measurements that we need for healthy longevity and healthy living, and worry about the core principles that are touted everywhere across any national guideline. The NHS has got a lovely document on the Eat Well guide. It's got a lovely document on, increasing physical activity. There's a lot of, British Dietetics Association, Diabetes Association. All of these websites have lovely pro formas and lovely templates as to how someone can improve their ways of healthy living. I think stick to that. Stick to the core principles. Reduce your social media time, reduce your screen time, reduce your private testing time, and just live your life.
And save money as well.
Save money.
Yeah. But I will say, off the back of that, the paralysis by analysis, I love that. I think I'm going to use that. It's great because I feel that being in the private sector as well as the NHS, I see a lot of patients that come in for my time, and it's like they're bringing all this data to me that they've had overseas or whatever it might be on these 30 million tests, and I'm sitting there saying, this means nothing. You're not going to look at one enzyme unless you have a condition, which is we know about, and then we know about the enzyme. That's going to be translated into any health benefit or non-benefit. So it's basically a waste of your time, a waste of my time, and actually we already know what we need to know because we are given those guidelines. We know what we need to look for, which blood tests to look for, which enzymes to look for, what we need to look for when we're trying to test for something. And I think having all these tests, like Dr. Id said, can just add and fuel the anxiety. And I think from that point of view, you're then going into wearable tech and you're getting your Apple iWatch and everything else on. And if you're somebody who's already anxious and you're already fueled by all these private companies who are telling you, you've got to do this, X, Y, and Z, that doesn't become a helpful piece of tech anymore. So I think when you've got an iWatch or you've got whatever it might be, an Apple a wearable tech device, it's helpful if you have a busy life. It's helpful to make life efficient. It's helpful to maybe track sleep to a certain extent. If you can use that as a loose indicator, okay, I only had 6 hours sleep or 4 hours sleep, I should really be having 7 to 8, I should just up that. If you're going to take it as a small nudge in the right direction, it's fine. If you're going to take it, literally you're going to sit there and you're looking at every heart rate that's gone. And I kid you not, I've sat in GP before where, our NHS is inundated on my NHS clinic, and we've had phone call after phone call of an individual who might have said, but my Apple Watch has gone off, my heart rate's too high, and it's like 88 to 90. Now, if you're a medic, you'll understand that's a normal heart rate, but obviously some of these devices will flag that up. So that will become, oh my God, it's been flagged up. It's telling me to go and get some help. It's telling me to go and see a doctor. And now I need to go to urgent care. I'm going to go to, so not only is it causing huge anxiety for the patient, it's also undermining our health system, and the things that we know that are important in our health system. And it's also taking away from those patients that probably need that service. And I don't mean to say that in any, any negative way. Of course, we should all access our health service if we're worried. But I think these tech devices are doing more harm than good in some cases, and they're just causing more of this anxiety. And where does it end? Because like Dr. Id said, there are some variables that you need to control, okay? Your lifestyle, your diet, you need to be looking at having that physical activity, and whether that is literally moving on the sofa, and you can do that, or whether that is, cold water exposure and you're swimming in a lake and that's what you do, great. But I think those are things that matter, and I think having a wearable tech device is great. I'm not knocking it. I have one. I love it, and I love it more because it's efficient, and my emails come up, and if I'm in clinic, I can go, okay, or if the nursery's calling, I go, oh yeah, that's an important call I have to take. So it is important, and it is there to be helpful, but I think we're losing sight of things a bit, and they're starting to spiral into this anxiety, and then that's a whole other, symptom and burden on our health system, which doesn't need to be there.
And it's worsening every other condition.
Every other condition. Because if you have anxiety and you have all these other issues, that's going to have a knock-on effect on your physical health, a knock-on effect on your sleep, a knock-on effect on your cortisol levels, blood pressure. And
raises blood pressure, worsens glycemic control, worsens type 2 diabetic outcomes, and the list goes on.
So we're just chasing our tails in some ways, and it's a bit of a cycle.
Oh, it's an interesting take then of actually doing less and stripping it all back. What about things like temperature exposure? So we see on people's Instagrams that people are doing temperature exposure at home with ice baths in the garden. They're using cryotherapy and saunas at the gym, and all these kind of emerging fitness trends that can be done at home or done in classes like HIIT training, yoga, functional fitness. Do these really work? Is this something we should all be including in our daily routine?
Yeah, good question. I'd say this is almost, another phrase I like saying is, it's kind of like majoring in the minors, right? So the core principle that everyone should be doing is increasing their movement, right? The unfortunate situation is the vast majority of adults in the UK and also the US and elsewhere, we don't even meet the basic recommendation for physical activity per week. 150 minutes, or whether it's 2 moderate intense sessions that are 45 minutes each or 60 minutes each or whatever. If the majority of people don't even achieve that, then why are we talking about what type of exercise you should be doing? Why don't we just do exercise first, right? So this is what I mean. It's almost like, why don't we achieve the first principle that has been shown to improve all sorts of health outcomes, and then we can discuss the merits of individual HIIT training versus, CrossFit versus steady state cardio, versus endurance or high, sprint interval training. There's loads of different types of training, right? And for the elite athlete or the athlete that has specific goals, so for example, I was a national level sprinter, right? So I wouldn't be doing steady state cardio, right? I never did any steady state cardio my entire life. I was doing, interval training. You sprint for 30 meters, you rest for 90 seconds. Sprint for 20 meters, rest for 90 seconds, right? So, and the things I'll be doing in the gym would also be catered to my sport-specific or goal-specific end goals, right? So unless you're someone that has a specific goal, whether it's for sporting related factors, it could even be aesthetics, bodybuilding, whether you're a coach of some sort, then yes, there is a valid conversation to have about the different types of exercise. But I think if you're a general person and you're asking about, okay, should I do HIIT versus steady state versus CrossFit versus yoga? My answer is do whatever you love doing. Because if you love doing it, you're more likely to do it, right? And you're more likely to supersede the threshold required to improve your health outcomes. Now, cold exposure is a different kettle of fish. I've actually covered some of the evidence in my online content around this. There's some evidence it could even worsen people's anxiety.
Yeah.
There's some evidence that it can increase certain hormones that are associated with worse mental health outcomes, worse levels of sex hormones in men especially. But then there are some, testimonies and anecdotes from people that say they get a wave of energy after a 3-minute ice bath, right? If you like doing that, okay, that's fine. But I wouldn't prioritize it over, once again, the core principles of healthy living. So I don't want you to major in the minors, major in the majors, and if there's time and space and finances left over and mental space left over, then by all means look into the rest of these things. Yeah, but I think because myself and Dr. Raj are very aware of what the general population do and don't do, and the majority, unfortunately, myself included, right? There are many weeks that go by, I don't do my 150 minutes of exercise a week. I need to improve myself first and foremost, right? But what I advise to patients and clients and people online and everywhere is we should just focus on the high-end stuff, right? The real juicy fruit from the tree, and leave the smaller, sideline things for when we've established these core habits, and then we can have a further discussion about the more intricate, the more nuanced, the more finer detail things, right? That's what I'd say about these additional kind of trends. Dr. Raj?
I agree, and I do echo a lot of that. I will just add, though, I think the thing that we need to be focusing on also and thinking about is lifestyle prevention inequality. So obviously, there's a lot, I come from a privileged background. I'm sure Dr. Idz, you're privileged if you've had a good upbringing and you have access to these things and have knowledge on them. And just by definition of being a doctor, I feel that I have privilege, So I think it's really important to understand that for the normal person in the public who doesn't have access to these things, even just getting out for a walk if you suffer with mental health issues, if you're a postpartum mum, if you don't have time, if you don't have money, it's really hard how to join a gym, what to do. So I really start with the basics. I say to my patients, you just need to move, honestly. Even if it's not 150 minutes, and that's what we say, but I say 30 minutes, go for a slow walk, build it up slowly, and do things that are easy, and if you can't afford it, couch to 5K, whatever it might be, slowly build yourself to that point, and you'll feel like, I've got somewhere. Most people, once they get there, when you exercise, it releases endorphins. So even if you're doing 30 minutes, you feel good after you've done it. And I think that's the thing that keeps them going. So you do it once, you do it twice, you get into this cycle. I think something like you have to have done it straight for about 2 or 3 weeks before you start really getting into the habit. And once you do that, it becomes something that's part of your lifestyle naturally, and you can almost crave that and you want to do it more. When it comes to things like ice baths and cryotherapy units, etc., I think it's really important to understand that there might be a small cohort for which that will work. So, for example, athletes, they might find that they're, less inflammation, their muscles feel better after ice bathing or cryo. Same with saunas and things. But again, there are still some studies that show that it could be a placebo effect. So we don't know enough to say yes for sure. I know with cryo, because I do a lot of skin health as well, that it definitely does work for things like inflammatory disorders. It works for fine lines and wrinkles. So if you want anti-aging benefits from cryotherapy, you'll get those. But everything in moderation, again, you're not going to get it if you just do that. You've got to do everything else, the healthy diet, the skincare. It's the same kind of idea. So if you want to have a glow up, it's got to be a 360. You can't just get one thing. And I also think that, like Dr. Idz said, major in the majors. There's no point doing no physical exercise or no movement, and then you're like, but I do 4 saunas, 3 ice baths, and 10 cryos. Other than maybe getting trench foot or killing your vessels off, there are side effects to these things. If you're somebody who has cardiovascular disease, you'd be really, really careful about going into an ice bath because you might constrict vessels and be more at risk of a stroke. I don't want to scare anybody, but that is a side effect you should know about. So if you have a comorbidity, always talk to your GP before you do anything fanciful. Stick to the basics. We're happy with you to do that. It's safe. If you want to do anything above that, come and have a chat. That's what I'd say.
When we talk about the body and physical health, it's so important that in the same vein we talk about mental health and well-being, because I think we all experience firsthand how intricately linked these are. So what should we be prioritising? How closely is sleep linked to our mental health? I'm talking as a mother who sometimes sleep is compromised and that's out of my control. Are there any techniques? We hear a lot about breath work, mindfulness, meditation. Are there ways that I can include these techniques into my life? And when I'm failing, what can I do then?
My master's in research, I actually looked at the topic of certain lifestyle interventions on the risk of depression and the outcomes related to depression. So one of the obviously most major mental health disorders in the world. We do know that people that have structured, organized days that are filled with different environmental stimuli, so different surroundings, just simply going outside, breathing the fresh air, having some sort of purpose or a goal for the day, along with looking after your dietary habits. So my research specifically in my master's year was based on the differences between refined sugars versus sugars found in natural whole foods, so from fruits, veggies, and dairy, versus the sugars found in ultra-processed foods, candies, sweets, biscuits, donuts. The risk reduction that you get from prioritizing the more natural total sugar sources versus refined is quite dramatic, and I'm looking to publish that paper soon, so look out for that as well. What I will say is a lot of simple mental health tips that I give to many people that I work with is to have a kind of structure of productivity for the day. It doesn't have to be a lot. Even if you plan just one simple small task for the day, right? Whether it's doing a few chores around the house, whether it's doing a bit of homework, whether it's doing a bit of studying, whether it's listening to a respectable well-being audio or podcast, right? And I say respectable because there are a lot of not respectable ones. Let's just leave it there. I think that sense of achievement, that sense of doing something productive in the day, that sense of having something to look forward to, that sense of satisfaction, that gratitude, and getting a different environmental stimuli, on your body, on your eyes, making sure you've, laid your eyes on some daylight if possible. I myself am a night owl, so I do struggle with that. I love the night too much myself. But I do genuinely, feel more uplifted, more enlightened, more energetic if I've been out and about early in the day. So I think there are a lot of these simple tips and tricks that people can just look to incorporate, which I think have a massive effect on someone's general mood. Now, when it comes to a serious mental health disorder, like clinical depression, I had the privilege of having a full rotation in psychiatry, where I was often the first person to see people in hospital that have severe clinical depression. I mean, people that can't even get out of bed, don't even shower, don't even eat, don't even brush their teeth, don't even, change their clothes, don't do any chores. These people need intervention, and I mean serious intervention. They're not going to get better by listening to a podcast, right? They need intensive psychological, medical therapy, lifestyle intervention, all together at the same time. So we're not talking about those people. We're talking about people who have, a bit of low mood, a bit of, mild anxiety-related symptoms, but are still able to get up, about, and do things in their life. These tips and tricks seem to be very effective. As Dr. Rice said in the last question, not everyone has the same circumstances, right? Not everyone has access to a safe green space nearby. I'm very fortunate. We have lovely parks nearby, right? Not everyone has access or the finances to a gym. Not everyone has access to minimally processed fresh fruit and veggies, for an affordable price at the local corner shop. Yeah. So we have to understand that not everyone has access or the means of utilizing some of these tips, but that's why we try and advise on a whole multitude, there's a toolbox, and you can pick and choose which of the tools you use from that toolbox, right? So even if it's planning to do a chore in the house, maybe you left the dishes because you felt low last night, right? why don't you just plan to do the dishes? And when you maybe the kitchen or the sink looks a bit clean, there's that sense of fulfillment, the sense that you've done something, right? And over time, you can build on this and build on the learning and the experience and the sense of, the sense of achievement and success. These things can slowly be incorporated, which I think can greatly impact someone's mental health, which then has a cyclical effect on their physical health. Right, and sleep is a whole other conversation that I can spend half an hour talking about. So I'll hand it over to Dr. Raj. Yeah, please.
I think Dr. Id said some really, really valid points there. And I think when we go back to nature and going out and our external stimuli, very important to have daylight in that, because I think we've got huge research that backs that. And I think also, so much so that now in GP we actually do social prescriptions. So that's not a medication. We say, here you go. I want you to go out and I want you to just go and see green, or I want you to go and to the local gym, and we can do that as a prescription. So if if your GP does that, it's important that you do ask, is this something that I can have? Because it's not always medical therapy that you need. And like Dr. Id said, if you've got more of a moderate to severe disorder, yes, we might, use medical therapy as an adjunct. It won't be the only thing you have. But we will always start with the lifestyle prevention measures. So we'll always say, look, what else are you doing? Like, how much sleep are you getting? What are your stresses in your life? These are the first things I'll ask. Things like, how much do you get out and about? Do you get exercise in your day? I'm putting that into context for that individual who might say, actually, I have no help. I'm a single mom. I have a baby that cries all day, and I'm really struggling. Like, I can't get out. How can I help them? Is there a baby mom exercise class they can go to that I can prescribe to them, give them information about? Is there a charity that does something? There's so much out there that is available, and the public doesn't always know about that. So I think that's number one. We know from research that getting in touch with nature, gardening, getting outside, automatically releases endorphins. You automatically get a lift. It's not going to treat severe mental health disorders, but it's definitely going to help uplift every human being that has up and downs in their life, and we all go through it. You might, whatever you're going through, stress at work, you're going to have low moments, and how do we tackle them? Because if we don't have a toolbox, like Dr. Id said, we have no resilience. If you don't have any resilience, all you're doing is relying on everybody else to help fix us, and that's never going to be the answer. In the minute, you can't get a GP appointment for 4 weeks. So if you've got feeling a bit low, you can either fester at home and feel low and then it turns into something big, or you can turn around and say, right, I'm going to try X, Y, and Z. I'm going to get out. I'm going to do something that's going to help me feel like I've achieved something. And small steps, like the exercise, small steps, then you become more hungry for more. You that pushes to the back of your mind, and you get other things that are happening. So I think nature's huge. Physical movement is huge. Mindfulness is huge. You need to think about how you're going to take time for yourself. And this sounds so cliche, like who has time for themselves? We're all busy, we've got children, we've got work. But it could just be, for me, my time for myself. And it's like 10 minutes at the end of the day. Everyone's sleeping, babies are asleep, husband's gone, everyone's gone to sleep. It's just skincare. I stand in front of the mirror, apply my skincare for 10 minutes calmly. I do some breathing. Meditation doesn't work for me because I've just got thoughts going on about emails and things I need to do. So I do something that's going to be calming for me. And again, it's a very individual concept. 10 minutes, deep breathing, going to bed, good sleep. If you have daylight, you're then having melatonin production, so you're then going to be able to regulate your sleep cycle in the circadian rhythm. You're going to be able to sleep a better cycle. You're going to be able to get to bed easier because you've already stimulated that melatonin that you need, to get the circadian rhythm where you need it to be. Day is day, night is night. I am actually a night owl as well, so I'm up editing and emails and things. But if I don't get daylight, my night owl becomes a lot worse, so I definitely then don't feel sleepy. If I'm out exercising, getting daylight, suddenly I feel that, I'm tired and I want to go to bed at a decent time and get those 7-8 hours in. So really important. And again, if you don't have great sleep, you're going to have implications on your physical health, on your mental health. So it's kind of like a cycle. So if you don't sleep well, you're then going to feel worse next morning. If you've got a health disorder, you might get, that might get exacerbated. So really important to think about those things that are free for us that we need to implement into our lives. And don't underestimate physical health versus mental health. I have patients that come into clinic and say to me, apologize, I'm so sorry, doctor, I'm a low mood, they burst into tears, and they'll spend 5 minutes of the consultation just crying and saying, I'm so, so sorry. And I always say to them, I want to ask you a question. If you came in for a blood test result, if you came in because you had a chest infection, would you be apologizing to me? Would you be saying, doctor, why am I not getting antibiotics? So in the same breath, you have every right to discuss this openly. Physical health has the same weight as mental health, and mental health has the same weight as physical health, and we should never underestimate them because they're so joint, they're so together that if you just separate them, you're never going to be 360 holistic care for anyone. It's not going to be happening. And that's what everybody globally needs more of, and the UK definitely needs more of that. That's my take. So I'm all for social prescribing, movement, mindfulness, anything else you can get that's going to help you, and you don't need a doctor's time for it, why not do it?
Lots of fantastic information, answers and things for us to go and try at home and implement into our daily routines. But do remember, always consult a professional before making any changes to your routine or anything to do with your health. Well, all that's left to say is thank you so much, everybody, for joining us today. I do hope that you've enjoyed it as much as we have. And don't forget, if you missed any of today's episode, you'll be able to watch it again on the Trafford Centre YouTube and listen wherever you get your podcasts from. Thank you so much for joining us.